Well, hello. How are you? Thank you for coming to visit today on this installment of Old Seeds Ringing Endorsements. And um, I'm excited to have another interview for you. Before we get started, let's get into some of the nuts and bolts. If you would like to show your support for what I'm doing. If you would like to endorse me, endorsing you, there are the options. There are the links to the Patreon and the likes and the subscribes. And we all have a story to tell. And who knows, maybe your story is next. I don't know. I know a lot of you guys out there. Maybe I'll give you a call. Um, about this particular episode coming up, I don't know what word to use. I'm excited about it, definitely, but excited isn't quite right. When I think of the word, when I think of inspiration and inspirational, I really can't think of too many people I know who are more inspiring to me than my guest today, Mike Alexander. Mike's an everything. Mike's an artist and a painter. Mike's a writer and a poet. Mike's an athlete. Um, Mike's a mediator. Um, Mike's done a lot, and his story of how he arrived to where he is today is a great story and a beautiful story. And so I'm glad to be sharing that with you. Um, I guess, in my opinion, he's really a true success story. Um, and so, in these trying times, let's throw a little positive light out there of success and of overcoming obstacles and moving forward and being a positive contribution in the world. Does that sound too corny? Tough. That's what I said, and I mean it. Okay, enough of the accolades. Let's get on with our interview here with my friend and hopefully soon yours, Mike Alexander. Holy shit, Mike Alexander. How's it going, man?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm
Nice to
pretty good. Yeah.
nice to see you.
Yeah. It's been just a little while, but totally awesome to see you.
Yeah, I guess last time we saw each other was at that we had lunch at that bar in Victoria. What was the name of that place? The
Logan's.
Logan's. That's right. We had burgers, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
I think that's probably why it happened that way, why it turned out that way. I trusted you because you were the local, right? Always trust the local.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I think so.
yeah. So thanks for doing this. I don't know if you know much about what I'm doing, this thing, but it's basically just to say hi to people that I have respect for as creative folk and as caring, enthusiastic members of the planet. And you definitely came to mind almost immediately when I started thinking of a list. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I first question I always like to ask is just how do we know each other?
Yeah, thanks for doing this. It's really cool. I saw the promo spot for it. And it's great because the promo ends with you sort of mid-swig kind of thing. It's really great. Enjoyed that and started to watch episode one, which was enjoyable and light and yeah, fast paced. It was really cool.
Nice.
So yeah, I think this is sort of one of the questions you asked your first guest was the how do we know each other? And I feel like there's a couple of stories, and you can maybe help me sort of put them in order. Um, I mean, I think that it must have been like I feel like you were in a band um, before I knew you, for sure. You were doing stand-up comedy, maybe some improv before I feel like I knew you very well. But having seen you around, I think Winnipeg, we were we ended up sort of working in the same building together. Um, I feel like I needed to learn how to become an assertive communicator using um, skills that would lead to better interpersonal sort of dialogue between myself and the world around me, specifically at that time um, in the context of the youth criminal justice system,
Yeah.
working with young offenders and victims of crime. So you would have trained me how to do that. Um,
I
and
think
so,
that would be my memory of I mean I think we both knew about each other in
yeah,
various amounts back and forth. Um, yeah, and so yeah, I was doing different band stuff, and you were doing different band stuff, and I knew about you from that. And then I was part of the
yep.
team that did a workshop that you came in for, and I will never forget. And I think I've already said this to you before. Uh, what really made me go, I want to keep my eye on this guy, is when you came into that very first training you had with you, creators. Um, I think it was Pleasure to Kill album LP, and
Right.
you went to the coffee table and you set it up like a display behind the coffee table at this like at this like this like conflict resolution Mennonite like quasi religious social work training seminar, and here's this Pleasure to Kill vinyl. Just, and you're like, I got this one. And I think you also had the shirt that was like on the back it said if you can prove to me that God exists, then I will hate God. If that's is that does that sound right?
Oh,
A
wow.
shirt? Is that a shirt? You had a shirt like
Yeah,
that on the back. Yeah, yeah. And I'm like, this guy's fucking awesome. Like I can totally get behind this guy. He he understands
there is a,
understands where the bullshit starts, you know? Like yeah. Are you there still?
yeah, there is an awful lot of pushback in a, yeah, I'm here.
Good.
It's talking about how you got low bandwidth,
Yeah, it's
but
saying that here too. But
I'm sure you can
let's
figure
keep
that
let's
out.
muscle through. I'm
Um,
gonna shut off my phone to make sure that doesn't get in the way. Continue.
hmm. Yeah, that was an interesting time for sure. Just really sort of pushing back pretty hard against, the world and the world that I sort of saw at the time. And I feel like it was maybe around that time that I started taking like dress shirts a little bit more seriously. But I felt like, this is kind of who I am. This is what I do. I don't think that there's any point in not being, true to myself. And uh, so, yeah, I mean, I was interested in intellectual growth and sort of learning new skills and all that stuff. But to an extent, it, had to be on my terms as well. So either take
Well,
it or leave it.
yeah, I mean, hey, listen, we were all younger, you know, and we've all I think come through certain uh, narratives that kind of there's a certain battle of pushback from all of us. I think growing up or getting into life and getting into adulting and whatever. Some more than others. I think I'm still pushing back at 50 years old. I think other people
Yeah,
buy other people buy in more or
yeah,
less, and that's their
for sure.
prerogative. But I just knew that, like, for my own brain, because I was also a little bit cynical of the whole thing, and or at least skeptical of it, and to see a and I'm an old banger myself, so it's like also just to see that part was great, and yeah, it's a really fond, it's a nothing but a positive memory. That I thought that was awesome. I wish I would have done more of that in that chapter of my
It
life.
was, I mean, it was, yeah, right. I mean, I didn't feel like I had anything to lose
No.
because I didn't, I couldn't have fit in if I tried. Like at that point, I sort of knew that, I was different than pretty much everyone in the room. And I knew that it was, probably a pretty decent place to be. Like, I don't remember meeting a lot of people in that capacity that were, you know, um, oppositional or difficult in the slightest. You know, I think
No,
that
no.
they they took it all with a grin and sort of just like they didn't even roll their eyes at it. They just kind of went with it, and
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
kind of, which helped bring me closer to the things that I needed to learn, right? Which was
Right.
kind of how to deal with people in conflict. And so if you can't deal with a guy in a stupid shirt with horrible taste in music, you know, I think that that person's probably in the wrong profession,
Yeah,
right?
I think you're probably right. And I mean, I have nothing but, I mean, I did a lot of work there and I learned a lot there.
Hmm.
Um, there were
Yeah.
like that's still some of the most important skills in my life is the understanding of like, okay, take apart a little bit what you're saying and really like analyze what you're saying a little bit and understand the effect of that, the effect of what you're saying on others.
Oh
The
yeah.
and saying, oh, wait a second, maybe I am doing this. When I do this, maybe this is why this happens. These are the results of my own communication choices. And yeah, before that, how much did that register in your stupid head when you're young and think you have all the answers?
Oh, oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was writing about this stuff yesterday, like in a grant proposal. I was thinking about this 2 days ago when I was thinking about my partner. I was, you know, using this stuff 3 days ago when I was getting really fired up and angry at this kind of thing that was happening at the store. You know, like just kind of like every day, you know, learning to behave in a way that that gets you farther and happier, I think, is more ideal
Yeah,
than struggling, you know, in this sort of mess of resentment and
yeah,
self pity and like the inability to sort of meet people where they're at ultimately, right?
yeah, yeah. And then there's the next dynamic um, when you get involved in a conflict between other people.
Yeah.
Um, when when you know two people and they both come to you and want to talk about what's going on, and
Yep.
you start realizing the subtle things that happen, not maliciously, but the subtle things that happen to where they try to get you on their side, right? And how to defuse that situation and allow people the ability to just talk about what they're doing, like all these venting skills and these paraphrasing skills that you learn to like help people just kind of like run out their dog a little bit and get their like you know sort of vent all this shit they need to vent and then also to let people know that you're not an ally or an enemy in that situation, but you're just a conduit. You're just there to and that's so valuable to your community, your friendship circle or whatever, to be able to do that when people are pissed at each other for whatever reasons you know
I don't think that people necessarily find it easy to sort of look at themselves in that way, like, oh, I don't, it's not that I don't have a stake in this conflict. It's that I can step back and sort of put my own biases aside long enough to sort of focus just on, you know, what's going on with these two
mm-hmm.
people. And I think that when you do understand that that can be your role and know what that sort of feels like, it's relief, you know, to you know, I feel like I consume an awful lot of media, so I follow a lot of, you know, the U.S. political system. I'm kind of a junkie for that stuff, and so
too.
that's often most experienced on Twitter, where it's a huge, you know, wind tunnel, so to speak, or a huge vacuum, and you don't really see opposing sort of viewpoints, ideally, because you know you just sort of tend to agree with one side or the other, um, and it's sort of pretty annoying sometimes because yeah, I mean. Um, Racism, sexism, misogyny, injustice, like these are sort of calling cards of Donald Trump and you know the Republican Party and that sort of thing. But it's sort of hard when you kind of see people who you would otherwise identify with, you know, on the left, sort of behaving in this sort of weird, way that kind of reflects a lot of um, the anger, that populist sort of like rage that I don't think is productive. And um, I don't really view both sides as being equals by a long shot. I know exactly where I stand on a lot of that stuff, but it's sort of weird to try to have conversations within that sort of online context. I think it's really hard to do that online. It's much easier to talk about these things that are pretty polarizing in person, preferably.
Yeah.
So when I look at that stuff and consume that stuff, it really sort of, right, right, okay, just take this for what it is, and try to sort of see where this person might be coming from, and take the
Yeah.
good, and understand that they're also kind of coming from a less than ideal position here.
Yeah. What are the, yeah, what are the, what's behind what's behind the one statement? It's, I always think
Yeah,
of that tip. I was thinking about that iceberg model, right? Like what's underneath the tip of the iceberg, right? If we go back to
yeah.
all that classroom jargon. Um, but yeah,
Oh yeah.
and I also think like I consume a lot too much of bullshit media, and certainly too much American media. It's so frustrating when you realize that the United States is 4% of the world's population, and how much of our psychic space they take up. You know, it's just like, why
But
am I thinking so
you know
much
what?
about 4% of the world's population? Like, why? What do you get out of my
Oh,
head? Like, but
I
I mean,
I
coming
need my
back, just coming back to the one point is the like internet and internet conflict, like using conflict resolution on the internet, I think is a exercise in futility, because I think you really, it's not that it doesn't work as well, it's just it doesn't function. You have to actually physically talk to somebody face to face and get body language. I would even argue that pheromones are involved, like to really understand a person, and to really feel understood. And I think when you're yelling into a um, what's the word I'm looking for, a repercussionless machine, like like doing something into the internet, there's no effect like on you. Like no one's
yeah,
going to come to your door and say, excuse me, that really hurt my feelings. Like they'll say you're a fucking rube or whatever online, but what does that really do? It's just ones and zeros, right? Like it doesn't really,
yeah,
not really tactile. It's like you can't taste an apple online, like it's kind of
yeah.
that. Maybe it's a little hippy dippy, but hey, you are out in Victoria, so
Right.
are you in
Yeah,
Victoria? Where are you right now? Or did you? Because I saw recently that you were going to Kelowna.
yeah. So yeah, I moved to the interior, the BC interior, and I live in Kamloops, of all
Kamloops,
places. Right.
amazing,
Yeah. Um, Kamloops is unexpectedly surprising.
or surprisingly unexpected, even.
It's
Um,
cool. Like we went for a really awesome hike last
I
night,
bet.
and
I bet.
like the mountains are here. Like it's mostly it's considered a desert sort of location, but we live in a valley surrounded by big mountains, and you can go hiking in those mountains, and suddenly it's lush and green, and it's totally like almost like a rainforest, except you're in a desert, and you have an awful lot of vertigo, and it's you're always just two steps away from falling to a death. It's really adventurous for sure, and it's like 10 minutes away from my house. So
Wow.
um, when you drive around Kamloops, I don't think you really get the whole picture of kind of the natural sort of surroundings that you can really take advantage of. And so yeah, it's actually, I was quite surprised to find these awesome little trails that we can sort of spend time just sort of exploring. It's really
That's
cool.
beautiful. Now, why did you go there?
Yeah, I fell in
What
love.
brought you? You fell in. Oh, that's the best reason to go anywhere, man.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, yeah, I feel like Um, everything's pretty much an adventure, and BC has kind of really opened me up to this kind of idea that you can sort of do incredible things. And when you meet, people that sort of understand that, who um, know exactly what you're talking about in that way, it's pretty cool. It's pretty awesome. So
Congratulations.
brought the records, brought the bike, came here, and
The fucking essentials,
immediate.
right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um,
That's great.
so yeah, Kamloops. It's unexpectedly surprising.
Yeah, right. That should be on the t-shirt. Uh, what and so what are you doing while you're there? I know you're involved in all sorts of creative stuff and
Hmm.
also athletic stuff, but
Right.
maybe
Yeah.
yeah.
So I mean, I we drove past the Kamloops Arts Council. Like the first thing that I did when I came into town was, it was pointed out, that's the old courthouse building. That's where the Kamloops Arts Council is located. And I said, yeah, that's where I'm going to take my first meeting. And I did. I met the executive director there within a week of setting up shop. And, within a month had sort of um, had an exhibition, you
Right.
know, confirmed. And so that's a hell of an introduction to Kamloops, as when
Yeah.
your art is immediately embraced. Um, so yeah, I just sort of really took to. I mean, one of the reasons why Kamloops is so exciting to me is because it's quiet. Like, there's not a lot going on here. There's not a lot of distractions. I can work in relative peace here, and so it just sort of has been this trip where I've been producing art and trying to get better at painting and drawing, and um, you know kind of decided that I was sick and tired of working shit jobs for a living, and just kind of want to go in, all in. I don't want to work for someone else. I never really have wanted that a lot, but I certainly sort of feel like um, shutdown has really given me a chance to sort of really kind of focus in on what I want to do artistically. And so, yeah, this is kind of the place to do it. There's everything that I need, and the time to do it as well.
That's excellent, Mike. I mean, that you. It's funny that I'm into recording episodes right now, and so
Yep.
I've got a few episodes behind me that aren't out yet, and so that's sort of I think that's going to be sort of the flow. And one of the guys that I spoke to just the other day was Semi Oran from Bursa in Turkey, and he was the guy from Sakatat, the Turkish grindcore
Oh,
band. He was the singer,
really?
and yeah, he's a buddy of
Killer.
mine. Yeah, and but we had a very similar part of our conversation. Definitely moved into this idea of work and this idea of what you want to do. Like, do you want to work for somebody, having the job, being in, and we talked about this idea of the effect of the sort of the DIY school
Yeah.
on who we become as adults
Yeah.
in the world, and sounds like that might be something that you could probably relate to as well.
It's very similar in a lot of regards. It's this weird almost belief in yourself, that you don't need outside apparatus to take care of your creative life. A lot of those principles apply to what I do. I work directly with art galleries. I work directly with gift shops who buy my stuff. I deal directly with buyers who want to have paintings shipped to them, and I don't you know, it's cool to work with a gallery. You know, I think that the commission that they take off of my work is fair and totally understandable. It's good to have brick and mortar shops when you can. So I'm happy to have you know, maybe a wider audience sort of be able to see my stuff and other people's work as well. Um, but you know, I don't see why, you know, I mean, you got to apply, you got to understand that art is more than just sort of painting a picture or whatever. There has to be that sort of business side to it. And I think that's an
Yeah,
important thing for any artist to have. And I'm sure you totally
sure.
understand that as well.
Yeah.
But, you know, at the same time, you know, I think that my experience in the world of DIY understands kind of, you know, how much, maybe how much long it takes, how long it takes to get to where you want to be, if you want to get there, you know.
Hmm.
I think it is a matter of, you know, having a really positive mindset and a willingness to really push yourself in just sort of believing that you kind of have what it takes to get there. And maybe
Yeah.
having a positive attitude isn't one of the components of DIY culture as far as I know it, but I'm just gonna throw that
Well,
in as something that seems to be working for me.
I think there's elements of positivity in it. I mean, it can get very cynical,
Yeah,
um, and depending on what niche of it. But I think there's some like fundamentals to like the DIY process or ethic that that definitely say uh, I can I can decide what I want to do, and then
yep,
I just need to start doing it, and I'll figure
yeah.
it out as I go along, and I'll adjust to the system as I learn more, and I become better and better. And I think that's one of the most invaluable lessons uh, that I've had in my life, right up there with the conflict resolution stuff. Like this idea that it's like it's okay to not be like to not do what you're supposed to do. Like, in
Yeah,
fact, it's arguably better to say okay, like I instead of you know, not wanting to rag on any one profession, but like instead of like going to work at a bank,
yeah.
I'm going to say what gives me passion in my life. What would I like to create? What would I like to be involved in creating? And then how do I go about getting that done?
That's
Uh,
exactly it.
and yeah, and then you just start. You know, it's like it goes back to that classic Ian MacKay story that he tells over and over and over again about how they just took apart a 7 inch, the packaging, to find out how to make a 7 inch, and then they made them. And you know, and it's like, yeah, it's just like it's really good to do that, to know that you can do that. And I always have
It's
a lot of respect for people who do that, who just say, I'm going to just try it.
I think, you know, we're probably at a point where we take some of this stuff for granted because we took apart that 7 inch a long time ago,
Yeah.
so to speak, you know, and I sort of, I meet a few, you know, young artists these days who, you know, if I'm selling my stuff, they come to talk to me, or, you know, they see me out and about or whatever. And, you know, you can see the look in their eyes that they're really excited about art. They're really excited about the process. They're really excited about doing art. Um, and you just sort of feel like, okay, yeah, now you just need to really disregard everything else, you know, all those voices in your head that says this can't be done, that I can't do this, that you know, I don't know how to do what you do, um, that I'm not an artist. Even maybe
No.
sometimes they think that. And I know that self-doubt is real. I know that self-confidence is tough sometimes, but
Yeah.
I really do feel that you know, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier as being almost idiotic, but to just have this belief that you can do it is a really, really good place to always be able to kind of come back to. Um, and I don't know how that looks for an individual, but I think it's pretty. I mean, I don't know where I'm at with the idea that some people are born to create and some people aren't. I don't know. I kind of go back and forth a little bit, but for those people who sort of are thinking that this is who they are, um, I think it's got to be hard to not create, you know. and eventually, hopefully, that the voice inside of, that person that wants to sort of listens to it closer and closer, and sort of gets an idea of what the path is going to look like, to where they can accomplish the goals that they have set out, or
Yeah.
that they would like to see themselves accomplish.
Yeah. It's tough to it's tough when you're right in it, like you, because you have to take these moments to kind of look back and see what kind of progress you've made as you're going along. I found that always helped
Yeah,
me out. That always helped me out where I was like, okay, today or right now I feel really, it feels really impossible. Like
yeah,
it feels impossible today. But then if I stop and I go, okay, but what's happened in the last 5 years, 1 year, five
yeah,
months, right? And then you go, okay, so
yep,
there is motion. Something is happening,
yeah,
and then you can say,
yes,
okay, well then I can. Sometimes you just kind of have to, it's almost like, when those like the meerkats like stick their head up to see what's going on around them, like, it's like, where am I at now? All right, good, yeah, you know,
I'm going to look at videos of meerkats after this is done and
right,
just kind
probably
of
all
go with that.
day.
That rules.
Yeah. But and I think it's really important to, yeah, encouraging the young. Like it's so weird to feel like at this point we're kind of like in a mentor stage at some levels,
Right,
just because of the gray, and yeah, so I'll have like young guys who play with me, and they'll come up and they'll be like, how do you get on tour?
right.
How did you get here? Like,
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
and
Yep,
it's just like, and like, I'm so enamored by the idea of what you're doing, or I'm so motivated, inspired, motivated, whatever. And you're like, really? I mean, it's just a set, right? Like, because I'm so used to doing it every day.
right.
And yeah, so
Yes,
that's kind of like those kids coming in. This is just total, just stream of consciousness right now. But those kids coming in and doing that is kind of the meerkat poking its head up, right? Like
yes.
for you to sort of let you
Yeah.
know, right?
I mean, the
You're
only
waiting.
difference I've really noticed that from, being an artist and kind of doing my thing and being in a band is that, the good news is that I don't sleep on anyone's floor anymore, right? That's good.
I still do, and it's okay.
That's rough. I mean, you deserve,
No,
you deserve a couch,
well,
Need
I actually usually prefer the floor to the couch. I'll take the
fair.
cushions off of the couch, put them on the floor, and
Oh,
it's,
yeah.
yeah, you got to
No,
do
I
that. I mean,
I think I I'm if I'm a mentor, then I get to choose my sleeping arrangements, and I'm gonna pick a bed.
the thing about the bed and the couch for me has always been like, it's really what the space is that bed or couch is in, that's the real kicker, right?
Yeah,
Like if I've got a couch but it's like a nice house and they're really, you know warm people, and not like just some chaos booze hole grossness where I'm like, you know picking bits of floor crud off of my hand while I'm trying to sleep or whatever, like,
yeah,
then I'm fine with it. But if I'm like, yeah, we're just going to be partying in the kitchen while I don't do that. That doesn't
right.
happen
Yeah,
anymore. That doesn't happen anymore. That had to
yeah. I
stop.
I feel like, when you're sort of trying to find the best place to hide your passport before passing out, it's because someone might take it. It's
No, I don't
I
do
don't
that.
I don't miss that.
I don't do it. I just don't. I actually have a rider, and it's very simple, but in it basically says a quiet, clean place to sleep. Like, sorry,
Yeah,
you're going to have to figure
yeah,
that one out. Like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I feel
like,
like I've seen
yeah,
things like that, and it sort of feels like that you'd think that that would be more sort of given, or
yeah,
just kind of assumed, but it's,
yes.
I guess, I don't know. People
We
like
all
to
know
party, I
about
guess.
assumptions. We all know about assumptions, Mike, right? Like,
Right.
they make a acid of you and umshins, I believe. So, but yeah, it's so you're painting lots.
Yep.
Are you writing much? Like, you were a
Yeah.
big writer back in the day too, I remember.
Yeah. Yeah. What did I do? I just got copies of this thing. The University of Victoria is responsible for something called the Malahat Review, and that is, um, a magazine or journal or something that's published every once in a while, and they have well, it's literature, it's writing, it's essays, it's poetry, and in my case, it's poetry.
Oh,
I've
good stuff.
in for the last 25 years, I've just been quietly, writing things down as I go along, sort of playing around with the language, kind of trying to make it fun, enjoyable, or trying to convey some sort of emotion. And for I feel like I've been sitting on that, pretty much the whole time. Um, but in my sort of quest to put myself kind of back out there, to as a writer kind of thing, with more to say than just sort of fuck you, kind of stuff. Like I feel
Yeah.
like uh, the ability to kind of reflect on sort of what's happened up until now, is kind of what's on my mind. And so just, out of the blue, I sort of unsolicitedly sent a few poems to this journal, who promptly bought, two of them, and
Amazing.
they just got published. And I've that's never happened before.
Hey, Mike
I've
Alexander, you're a published poet.
yeah, I yeah yeah
Wow.
it's crazy. I you know um, it's just kind of one of these things that I didn't. I just wanted some feedback on kind of, hey, is this like not terrible? Um, and I got it.
Right.
So I've got this pile of like 60 poems or whatever that I've kind of been trimming away at, and kind of working on for years and years, just kind of sitting there. So I don't know what that means. I think I should maybe see what someone else thinks about them, and kind of see if I can't get some more of that published.
Are you a big editor with writing? Do you do a lot of editing of your writing?
I do. Yeah, I mean, the first draft is always, pretty painful to go over, once you've been able to step away from it. Um, and I think that, I mean, I'm sort of at a point with a lot of my writing that it sort of ends up in the hands of an editor. So, I'll do what I can to sort of clean it up, but every time I've ever sent it for a second pair of eyes to look at, oh boy, there's a lot more, to clean up prior to publication. So yeah, I sort of feel like, to avoid making their day longer, I can, do what I can to make it as polished as I can on my own, understanding that for some reason, writing requires a second pair of eyes. And
Mm,
so anytime I get to work with an editor, and that's peace of mind for me. Um,
yeah.
so
But
yeah,
your own process also involves a lot of editing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Does
mean,
much does much does much come out first draft and stay first draft? I mean,
yeah, not recently. No, I mean, I sort of try to. I've got this note on my phone where I can just sort of add sort of stanzas or ideas or things
I
that
use it all
occur to
the
me at the
time.
time, right?
All
Yeah,
the time. It's my main
and
tool. Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I come back to it and build on that, or sort of rejig it a little bit, and sort of, a lot of these things are always works in progress.
Yeah.
And I can finish like maybe two or three at a time if that's the way it's been going. But I'll go, 2, 3 weeks, a month without thinking about it at all.
Yeah.
And that seems like a pretty fair amount of time to give an idea to breathe and to sort of develop. Um, I'm I'm in no rush, right? I mean, I don't really care. I'm not working really towards anything other than just sort of um, clarity of mind. And yeah,
Yeah.
so if someone along the way wants to put out a collection of it, sure. But until that time, I just sort of feel like there's always something new to learn about um, communication and writing, and how that all sort of comes together.
Sure.
in an artistic and sort of pleasing way, right?
Yeah. Now, the
And
journey is the goal, right? So,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So there's poetry. I'm a contributing writer to uh, a magazine. Um, there's some freelance stuff on the go. It's yeah. I write, a couple times a week. Devote time to it. Um, I'm one of those guys that says I'm working on a novel, and technically that's true. Um, Whether or not it gets done is quite another story altogether, and that's
Well,
okay.
as a writer and as a endurance athlete, which we haven't really touched on yet, but maybe this is a nice segue.
Sure.
Are you familiar with the book by Haruki Murakami, What I Talk About When I Talk About Running?
I don't know that.
I would highly recommend it to you. I think
Hmm.
it might be a lot of stuff that you kind of already have figured out and internalized, but it's a really beautiful little concise book. He's a ultra marathon runner,
Yeah.
and then he's also an ultra marathon novelist. His books are ginormous. They're all 800 pages long, 700
Oh,
whatever. They're big beasts, and so he talks about sort of this idea, and but this particular book is like 100 pages, so it's like a little
nice.
a little haiku in the middle of his like massive pieces. He just goes, here's this one simplistic zen approach for you to sort of absorb, and
Well, that's
it really got me running. It's the thing that got me running. Like that's why
right.
that book is why I'm now successfully able to run. I took a bunch of stabs at it and it never worked, and then I read his book, and there's like, he got me to get over that first hump of running where I felt comfortable to just say I can run.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, and yeah,
We're recording this, so I'll be able to sort of rewind and get the name, and
exactly.
I'll
Haruki
totally look into that.
Murakami is a famous author. If you haven't, he's got a lot of books, lots of books. So,
I could pretend and be like, "Oh yeah, right,
oh
yeah,
yes, of
yeah,
course.
I
Yeah,
read it 10 times. Yeah, it's totally
mhm.
awesome." And you can just edit out the part where I don't know
Yeah,
anything.
yeah. No, man, I want all the gross in there as well. I want reality. I'm
Yeah,
looking for
no,
the
I
truth, man. I'm looking for the truth.
yeah, it's no, it sounds really awesome.
Yeah,
I feel like I haven't read a lot about people who, especially in the sense of endurance sport or what sort of motivates people. I know that there's a whole industry, geared towards self-improvement and
yeah,
wellness and that sort of thing, which largely doesn't interest me at all. But some outsider, sort of freak has is can write something that sort of speaks to me, that a guy that totally doesn't know anything about this world, then certainly I'm interested in hearing about that.
yeah, yeah. He's an excellent writer. So then, tell me, Mike, what got you started? Why did you start getting into?
Um,
I guess
yeah,
you started with biking, right?
yeah. I was 320 pounds. I was in the solid grips of alcoholism. I was, you know, uh, undiagnosed as having major depression for 25 years. And, all of this sort of came to a head right around 2015, when, my world pretty much fell to pieces. My ability to be a functioning alcoholic was pushed to its absolute limits, and couldn't go on with that anymore, and proceeded to have this sort of crazy 2-year downward spiral that resulted in a suicide attempt. And I survived that, in a lot of really important ways. I mean, I'm here, so physically I survived, but I think emotionally, it was a real sort of turning point in my life, to sort of be faced with the idea of, homelessness, and the inability to really sort of take care of myself, and being, totally in this strange world of Victoria where I didn't really know anyone or feel like I had any real supports to help. Um, it's a real sort of strange place to be aware that I can't do things like I can't be independent. I have to learn to depend on other people. So long story short is that, one of the things that I'd been doing up until that point that was good was writing a clunky old sort of Walmart special kind of thing around Winnipeg before I left. And it was really heavy. It was a big, ugly, gnarly bike. But I got to riding it and did so on a pretty regular basis because, even though it was totally out of control and sad, I wanted to, there was something inside of me that wanted to be well. And a bicycle kind of really sort of came as this sort of tool that I began using to see if I couldn't, dig my way out of this hard time. And by the time I got to Victoria, I kept on riding and was suddenly faced with, the terrain of British Columbia and,
Hills.
nonstop hills,
What? Well, I
nonstop.
know there's shocking, right? When you get off the prairies.
It was tough. It was comedic. It was horrible. It was all of these things because as I quickly learned, you can't not hit a hill um, as soon as you leave the house. Like they're there, and you're
Yeah.
gonna have to deal with it, or else you're gonna have to find something else to do because they're not going away. You can't avoid them. So I got really into it. I had this. I started. I got diagnosed. I got on some proper medication. I got hooked up with counseling and therapy and committed to sobriety and just kind of started anew. And part of this whole program for me was to take my physical health seriously with the theory that your physical health has a great impact on your mental health as well.
Hmm.
And so I figured that, I want to sort of ride my bike as far as I can, as fast as I can, as a way to take control of my well-being, and that sort of translated into running. Um, had to learn how to do that. Never really done that before since I was a kid, and then swimming. And sort of feel like this idea of doing all of these things consecutively, one after the other, became sort of this ultimate sort of idea of what freedom, really looks like for me. Because I feel like in these moments when I push myself as hard as I can, that there's an awful lot of learning there. There's an awful lot for me to learn about myself, as
Hmm.
far as what I'm capable of and what resilience looks like. Um, and I think that if you're a native kid growing up in Canada, you learn the word resilience at a really, really young age. And, I had to really sort of come to terms with an awful lot of things about myself that made me unique. And, growing up in Winnipeg in a non-native community, there was really no one I could talk to about these things that made me feel so alone and confused, about life. So a lot of that sort of energy, that negativity gets thrown onto the bike, and I just kind of go, go, go. And, endorphins are great. And, when you see what you're truly capable of, it really sort of changes the whole picture. And so cycling, is what got me going on this path that I'm really, really thankful for. It's a really great way for me to spend time to get to know myself in some ways for the first time ever.
Yeah. Uh, it really is the greatest antidepressant. Like,
Yeah.
just get out there and break a sweat and get that heart rate up. I say it so many times. My friends and loved ones are always razzing me about, yeah, yeah, I know, get my heart rate up and break a sweat. And I'm like, no, but seriously, it works. It really works. Like, You know, there's other things, of course, there's medication, there's therapy, and there's other things you can do. I also have depression. I kind of feel like, who doesn't in this fucked up world? Like, if you don't, I think that that's really much more suspect than if you do.
Yeah.
Um, uh, but yeah, it's, I mean, I agree with you. I've had this, I've also had this epiphany. I'm not anywhere near as extreme as you are, in terms of the commitment to the massive thing. I just run a bit and do a bit of calisthenics and some yoga and stuff, but consistency, right? You got to kind of keep doing it. And uh and don't be afraid to say, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna put in something today. I'm not gonna just say,
Yeah.
fuck it. You're going to do a little, just do something. Get the heart rate
Yeah.
up, break a sweat, you'll feel better. And this shutdown has been very much a motivator for me to get a little more focused, because I would, you know, it's hard when you're traveling a lot to keep that consistency.
Yes. Yeah.
And so when I stopped traveling, then I was like, yep, every day, baby, every day. So yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I told you this one when we last spoke, but the Cro-Mags came to Winnipeg and played a show, and that was sort of at a point where I was pretty down, pretty out, and I was also their ground transportation to and from the airport, and taking their singer John Joseph out to a vegan restaurant and driving him around and doing all this stuff. Anyways, after the show, I was in the back of the Park Theater with the van. The rest of his band was in the back waiting for him to settle up and to get into the van so we could take them to their hotel. Um, you know, I told them, I don't know why I told them this, but for some reason, they found out that I was sad, that I was in a bad way, that I was unhappy, that I was sort of in this dark place kind of thing. And all these guys were like um, into Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had seen John Joseph sort of playing with his beads. Um, sorry, I don't know what that specifically is called, but I saw him engaging in, his spiritual practice, and I was like, right, I forgot. Yeah, he's totally into this stuff. Um, but I also knew that he was, I mean, I don't think I really cared at the time, but I knew that he was into triathlon. And
Yeah. He's a
um,
big athlete guy too.
yeah, and, his bandmates had told me, you seem like the kind of guy that, is really looking for something. And, we just want to tell you that, keep going, keep searching, keep looking, you'll find it, and that was such a crazy sort of thing for me that I've never really forgotten, is this idea that there's always hope, there's always something happening, that or something about to happen that hasn't quite unfolded yet, that you can reach, that you can grab, that you can have for yourself, even when you don't feel like it, when you don't feel like you deserve it. It's still there. And I feel like subsequent to that, I've really sort of followed a little bit about what John is up to with his life, and sort of how he goes about sort of being this 50-year-old kind of athlete um, extraordinaire kind of thing. And I sort of feel like, yeah, this is the kind of guy that I want to be like, like, as far as role models are concerned, as far as mentors are concerned, he's this foul-mouthed guy with a crazy accent who plays in a really good band, but who also sort of has a really good idea about sort of how to treat himself, and to understand what he needs in order to get by in this world.
Yeah.
So yeah, that
Wow.
rules. That's what I want to be about.
Right.
That's important to me.
And again, and then that circles back to the whole DIY thing,
Yeah.
because getting involved in that community, you meet these like-minded people.
Yep.
Some of them you maybe even put on a bit of a pedestal at a certain point,
Sure.
and then you meet them, and it gets human,
Yep.
because you're putting on the show, you're working together, and then and you get this inspiration. And I mean, I've had that happen a number of times, and that is always such a thank fucking whatever I'm thanking, that that I'm able to be at this place, uh, right now. And in fact, and to be quite honest, I feel that way right now talking to you. If I'm going to be,
Right.
I mean, like, because you're extremely inspiring to me. I mean, just
Hmm.
that you hit this, you hit a wall, and you fucking you said, well, I guess I'm going to have to figure some shit out, and you did, and you continue to, and it's so inspiring, and it's so inspiring to hear you talk about these things. And I want to thank you for that. This is, I mean, just at this point, because I really feel, I think I did this over our burger as well, but I want to thank you for for doing this and for being open and talking about it, talking about your your depression and your struggle with alcohol and your journey essentially. And I want to thank you for that, because I think it's great that you did it, and I think it's great that you share it with other people, because there's a lot of people out there, and right now, especially with all the existential crisis we're all
Mm.
involved in, it's like when have we ever been all on the same page as much as we are now in terms of this thing? We all have this in common, this weird, like, what the fuck moment, this prolonged
Yeah.
what the fuck moment. And
Yeah.
yeah, so thank you for that anyways.
I appreciate it. I, I think we're all going to have to be faced with this idea of sinking or swimming, in these times. Like it's such
Yeah,
a, like it's good to sort of have this conversation and others like it because it sort of puts me in front of the face of someone that I know and someone that I really, really love and someone that I appreciate. And it really sort of takes me away from looking out the window and being like, oh no, it's still happening, right?
yeah, right.
I think these moments are so important. And unfortunately, Zoom is sort of the way that a lot of this is happening. We're talking about communication not being able to happen as well on Zoom earlier on in terms of conflict. But I think the same thing applies for people that you do want to see, people that you do want to sort of hang out and whose body language you're familiar with and whose
Mm.
pheromones you kind of
you've already
recognize.
you've
And
already sniffed out. Yeah.
like, oh God, not him again.
They're pretty
Um,
nasty right now because it's hot as hell in Berlin today. So
oh yeah, right. I got this fan,
beautiful.
so
You're a
I'm
lucky man.
pretty good.
No, it's nasty here right now. It's like we were in the
Yeah.
middle of 35-degree heat wave all week.
Oh, we just went through some of that,
Yeah,
but it's sort
nasty.
of better now.
Anyways,
Hopefully,
that was just a stink joke, but we can.
yeah, yeah, it's awesome. I wish my fan could somehow make its way into the laptop here, and you could
Right?
download it and have
Yeah,
a
right.
nice
A
breeze.
fan app. The sun. I mean, we're getting into twilight. The sun's starting to go down, so it'll cool off now. So we'll be fine.
Right.
You know how
Yeah.
that's how it works. That's the thing. Like when you're in the middle of a heat wave, you got to remember that this too shall pass.
Yeah. Do you like what do you know about like running in like extreme heat? Like how great of an idea is that? Like
Well,
is that
all I know is for myself personally, and I don't do it because I am a very sweaty guy when I
yeah,
run.
yeah,
I don't run long. I run 6K, and
yeah,
if it's anywhere above 25 degrees, my shirt is soaked through by the end of
yeah,
that, all of it,
yeah.
and I'll sweat for another hour afterwards too.
Yeah,
So
I try to
I don't do it because I know I'm just going to dehydrate and I'll get sick.
yeah, I've got those water packs you can sort of
Ah,
on a vest. But even
nice.
then, like I don't think that 10 kilometers in a heat wave is a really fun time at all.
No,
Um,
I try to do. I'm running earlier in the day now too. Like
yeah,
I get my run in before like 10 or 11 at the latest, so that I don't so that I'm not there in the. I mean, I don't go out 30 above 30 is just it won't doesn't work for me. I get too tired too fast. Yeah, my body shuts down. I start getting nauseous. Like,
I sort of it. I think it. I've done that a few times just because this idea of pain and hurting is
yeah,
so kind of a part of this for me. Like I know that there's people that do sort of run in the desert, and
there
you know,
are there are a
so
lot of them. Yeah,
like I always kind of like all I've ever done in my life is really push the limit, right?
yeah.
Push
I
as hard
mean,
as I can.
as long as I've known you, yeah, right. Right
So
from the creator album on the coffee table. You're pushing the limit right there, right? So
right. So
yeah.
I think about what does it take to train in these harsh conditions. I'll let you know how it goes.
Well,
But I sort of
there's
feel
that
like
guy, Dean Karnassus is the guy who's the go-to guy on that, right? I don't know. He's got a
sweet.
bunch of
Yeah.
stuff. I don't know if you know about him.
No.
Dean Karnassus. He set a record for running 50 marathons in 50 states in 50 days. He
Oh,
uh, he did the Mojave Desert Ultra Marathon, but he doubled it. Like he finished
uh,
it and then he just did it a second time. Like he's a nut. But yeah,
uh,
yeah, he's a maniac. But there's lots of information. He talks a lot about what he does, and he's written lots of books and shit about like technique. And I think
fair enough. Yeah.
bit of a
Good
guru in that.
times.
But yeah, but I watch him and I'm like, yeah, okay, that's excellent, good for you. But that's too much for me. That doesn't. I don't have that motivation. But maybe I could see you doing them. Like, have you done an ultra marathon yet?
No, I've gone as far as a half marathon. Um,
Okay,
and, I've done a standard distance triathlon kind of thing. So,
amazing.
you
That's
know,
so amazing. Really, good
it's a
for you.
gas,
Yeah,
it's really cool. I mean, by the time you get off the bike and you start your run, for me at least, I've sort of passed a few people. It's feeling on top of the world. But the
yeah,
first kilometer in, suddenly all of them are passing you on the
yeah.
run because now the runners are kind of taking over, and I'm traditionally not a strong runner. So
That's not where
in
you
those
started, right?
moments, right? Yeah. So in those moments, you're getting an awful lot of like, yeah, keep going, right on, good work, and like all this positive kind of energy from these people who know that you're struggling, but who also know that Jesus, you've just put in a ton of effort and you're still going. And the finish line is 9 kilometers away, and
Yeah,
you'll finish this in the next hour, and it'll be totally awesome. And it's helpful, like this idea that you're not alone
yeah,
is best expressed in those moments when people are just like enthusiastically cheering you on.
yeah.
It's important,
Back to
important part of
encouragement,
it.
right? Back to encouragement. Back to that. Back to that same thing.
It's always going to go back there for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah. So what is a standard triathlon then? It's 10K is the run in it?
Yeah, so you start off, it's 1,800 meters in the water,
Okay.
and then it is a 40-kilometer bike ride, and then it is a 10-kilometer run.
All right. Bam.
It's um,
It's
it's
a hell of
doable.
that's a hell of a thing.
It's a hell of a thing. Like I think many people might be surprised at how they might actually be able to bang that off. It's I mean, you can sort of work your way up to it for sure. I think that there's an amount of training that goes into that for sure. But I think a standard is kind of maybe where a lot of people say that's kind of the turning point. Like if you want to do an Ironman, which is the next progression, um, which is the next, distance, um, you kind of need to really sort of change the way that you do things in your life. You kind of need to really sort of consider nutrition on a way that you generally wouldn't, and
Yeah.
train 15 hours a week kind of thing, and just do these things that a lot of people, myself included, just don't have the time or energy to do. But you can still be me, who's eating my fair share of pizzas and veggie burgers, and you can still knock off a standard distance if you work for it. And that is a huge, huge accomplishment for anyone, you know.
Yeah.
And having felt that sort of sense of accomplishment, it's like, okay, yeah, I can do an awful lot of things that I didn't know that I could.
Yeah,
So,
sure. Yeah, I mean, and certainly with any of these endurance kind of sports, I mean, it really starts there anyways, right? It starts with you saying, "Shit, can I even run a kilometer like
yep,
without stopping?" And then yeah, and then you
yeah.
move on
I
from
mean,
there.
I left Winnipeg, and this guy I was hanging out with beforehand was like, wouldn't it be fun? Because I was into riding a bike at that time. He's like, wouldn't it be funny if you like did a triathlon? Like, and we laughed because it was hilarious. But you know, the comment,
Mm,
the well-intentioned comment was never lost on me, and sort of became this thing that I was kind of fighting against. You know,
mm.
fighting to sort of grab and to kind of beat up and to sort of leave it in the pile of self-doubt that you know I was amassing quite a collection of
Yeah,
kind of
the
thing. You know,
defeatism, the that's impossibleness. Like,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. I mean,
It's now
yeah,
it's a trigger. Like you just decide that's it. I'm not going to accept anything less than what I'm capable of
yeah,
anymore. And
yeah,
like there's no there's no way around that. There's no way
yeah,
that yeah, but what if you sort of do this, that? Like, no, no, I can deal with it, you know.
yeah. You got to kind of say, okay, this is something I'm going to commit. It's a commitment thing, right? You got to commit to it, and then soldier through until you
It's
get to the other side. You can't. Yeah,
it sucks that there's no events, you know, this year. No one's doing anything in groups of people this year, obviously.
right.
So the couple of triathlons that I thought I was training for and writing about in the winter suddenly evaporated. And so it's harder when you sort of don't have anything that you're really working towards. Like
I hear
I'm
you.
still I'm still out there, you know, 10 hours a week, but there's no swimming. We're a considerable drive away from open water. Um, you know, I don't fancy the idea of going to the Y at all right now for any reason. So that's now I'm just sort of doing running and riding and without a real goal in mind other than just kind of doing this because I have the energy to that needs to be spent, you know, every day. Like
Hmm, hmm.
if I don't do this, then I start to freak out and start twitching and you know the whole bit.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a good thing that this particular sport that you're involved in is possible or is a solo endeavor. Could you imagine if you were playing football or something as your sport? Then you're out of then you're screwed. Then you can't do that, right? So
Yeah, I saw
that's
it.
a good thing. Like I'm glad I'm
Yeah,
not. I've never been a team sports guy, so I'm glad that that's not a thing for me.
there's definitely occasions where I feel the need for a finish line, like it's sort of nicely encapsulates a period of training for sure.
You mean the
But
competition with other people to do it? Like,
yeah, like
yeah,
yeah, ultimately it's a competition with me, like you know. But certainly it's in a group kind of setting where there's you know sound of a gun being fired and
yeah.
you know noisemakers happening and
Everybody
people on
getting
the street.
excited.
You know that's really cool and that's a really good feeling. But that isn't um, why I got into to this stuff. So it's okay to kind of go without it.
No,
Um, you know, you'd certainly feel for those times when you can sort of be in that sort of setting with other people who kind of are really excited about completing these incredible goals that they've set for themselves. But
mm,
at the end of the day, I think it's okay to just sort of enjoy, you know, being this lone wolf
yeah,
out there. You know, I think I get an awful lot of work done. You know, maybe on a emotional or spiritual level, as far as you know, just kind of being uh, alone with my thoughts in my world, kind of thing, pushing forward.
yeah. Speaking of pushing forward, what is coming? Like, what is the future looking like? What do you see on the horizon for you? Where are you going, buddy?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for sure, it's one day at a time.
Uh,
I often sort of feel like if I haven't achieved X, Y, and Z, then I'm somehow falling short of what I've set out for myself. And you know, that's sort of weird, sort of alcoholic thinking. You know, that you're kind of not adding up or something. So looking at things in one day at a time is kind of the way that I'm trying to better train my head to think. So I mean, in the future, you know, I feel like there's an artist, artist in residence thing happening in Duncan, um, where it's sort of this self-directed kind of period of time where I have a studio to just sort of create in. Um, there'll be kind of an artist's talk, or I'm going to have to find some words to say about what I do for people who want to know. Um, hopefully there'll be some sort of a return to work. I like to facilitate art workshops for people, and so
Yeah.
teaching them to kind of wrap their heads around painting, drawing, or what have you, I think is an important part of making anyone's day a little bit more manageable.
Hmm.
um,
Creativity, right?
yeah. um, I feel like there's probably an awful lot of things I, that I'm thinking about, or that is scheduled to happen. I just usually sort of blank when I'm asked straight up what those things are.
Yeah,
Um,
right. Yeah, right. And I mean, and how much do you want to commit to?
right.
I'm going to do
Yeah.
this, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to climb this mountain, I'm going to build a house and a boat, and like, yeah, exactly, right. And then none of it gets done. And then you feel like a
Right. Yeah. I think it's, I I have a studio now, so I can spend some really quality time kind of just kind of being there and having this new kind of room in my life where I get to sort of just solely create and listen to tunes and that kind of thing.
awesome.
Um,
Are your
you know, I'll,
records are your records in your studio then?
they're not.
No.
I don't know if you've heard about it, but there's this thing out there called Spotify.
I've heard
It's
about it. Yeah, it's
brand new, and
magical.
yeah,
It's
I
magical.
just I just I think, what do you do? You download it. I have a
Downloading something. It's an app.
something, and
App.
so I've got this thing that allows me
Sure.
to listen to music.
I guess you don't want to get paint on your records, right? So that's probably a
No,
good idea to
no,
separate the two.
it's happened. I've got some
Sure.
fingerprints on the vinyl. It's not the vinyl, but the labels itself,
Yeah,
kind of
sure.
flipping them over on the
Mm-hmm.
turntable mid
Mm-hmm.
painting, and it's like, ah,
Mm-hmm.
shit, what am
Yeah.
I doing?
Yeah. So you're
So
probably that's wise. Keep that separated. Yeah.
yeah, I
Stick
like to
with the
keep them in good
Spotify.
condition.
Little
They're
saran wrap over your
alphabetized.
tablet and you're
Oh,
good. Yeah.
safe spinning.
That's right. That's right. No,
So
Spotify is the best and worst thing that's ever happened to music. So
I somehow came into the premium one. So when people start saying things like advertising and like I
oh,
feel
I'm
like I
also on
just
premium.
missed that altogether. Like, sounds like a horrible world to like. There's enough advertising in my
Yeah.
fucking life already.
Yeah. No, the thing that sucks about it is the amount of that like artists don't make anything off of it. It's just
Ah,
it's just an
well,
absolute it's a revenue-less source. But I mean, I use it all the time and I can't I mean, as much as I agree that it's a bad thing and everyone was posting in the last couple of weeks about this the guy from Spotify saying that musicians need to make more music if they want to,
oh,
right? And everyone
right,
was pissed off about it. And my comment was consistently just Bandcamp because I think theoretically I'm a pro Bandcamp guy, even though I do use Spotify myself. Like
yeah.
I'm,
I
I'm
think I
I'm with I you can cast a stone at me for sure. Like, but
well, I don't. I mean, I primarily like buy physical,
yeah, sure, sure,
records. Like, I don't. I just got Spotify like 2 weeks ago. Like,
yeah,
that's the first time that I've ever really seriously considered using, you know, anything online like that other than YouTube if I'm previewing
yeah,
something that I want to buy. But I still spend way too much money on consuming,
yeah.
records. And so if you're a band and you're putting out music and it's not half bad, like, don't worry, I'll be there. I don't.
You're still going to be buying, yeah, sure. And
I'll
there's
yeah.
the vinyl junkies are always going to be there, and that's not so much the issue. What bothers me is just the absurd amount of money that is being made, and how none of it is going to the artist is what pisses me off.
Yeah.
Whereas when you go to Bandcamp and you want to download some digital files, or you want to throw a few bucks in there, the majority of the money goes to Bandcamp. I mean,
Ugh.
the majority money goes to the artist. It's the other way around. So
Okay.
so it's the good one. Like when this thing happened, uh, Bandcamp started doing this bi-weekly or monthly or something free Friday, where there's one Friday where they take no charges, and
Oh, I think,
you
yeah,
can do
that's
all your purchasing on Bandcamp that day, and it all goes directly to the artist, right? So like it's like day and night, like how Bandcamp approached the whole thing, and then how and then the guy from Spotify comes out and says, "Oh, you need to be working harder if you want to make money." At the exact same moment in history, right? That we're all sharing. And so you have to
oh,
scratch your head a little bit at that fucking dork's approach to the whole thing. So I'm
what a
pro
prick.
Bandcamp. I'm pro Bandcamp, even though I do use Spotify as well. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Uh, damn. Yeah, I feel like I've seen that Bandcamp Free Friday thing and people get pretty excited about it. And I've seen that a few bands are like, they're also selling like physical,
Yeah, yeah, sure. They'll sell
they're selling
physical copies.
merch, shirts and that kind of thing. And
Yeah, it's all in
I get
there.
excited about that.
Yeah,
I,
because it's weird. It's weird buying files, anyways, right? Like buying
I
files,
haven't done it.
really
I,
archaic.
I
I
think
mean,
I bought like a Weezer record from my phone just to sort of see like what would happen if I bought
yeah,
music off the internet. But
yeah,
that happened like once. Like I don't,
yeah. It doesn't make sense. I mean, it's
it doesn't feel the same at all. Like that's,
no, no, no.
it,
And like, and the thing is, I mean, it's all streaming now. So why would you, get a fucking 2 gigabyte hard drive and load it up with records that you're buying from Bandcamp? Like, why would you do that? Like, it makes no sense.
yeah, it's, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
like
know.
stream it, right? Like,
Yeah,
obviously, yeah,
yeah,
obviously,
I don't know.
yeah. I don't know. We live in a weird world, Mike.
Yeah, it's,
No,
I don't know. I think it's going to be okay though. Like I think
something's gonna happen.
it's, I don't know. I feel like there's this, that something's going to happen and I can't see it being like all bad. Like I don't know, like it's an exciting time. Like it's when you sort of find yourself in the midst of history being made. um, I know that the stories I'm telling through art are things that are important for the future.
Hmm.
I think it's important. An artist is a storyteller, and a storyteller is responsible for the communication of history to the next generation, and so on and so forth. um, it's a great time to be an artist in under these horrible sort of circumstances, because we have a responsibility that is of crucial importance for what happens next.
Yeah. And I'm really glad you said that, because I think that needs to be shouted from the mountaintops. Um, uh, there, there's the tendency to look at art as, I mean, I saw it also, some newspaper put up a list of when we started talking about essential and non-essential things, and
Yep,
artist was number one in the non-essentials.
saw
And
that.
infuriating,
Yeah,
infuriating. Because if we're going to move forward with any sort of creativity, it's the artistic world and the artists in all of us that are going to be able to think creatively, to come up with new creative ideas of how we're going to do this.
yeah,
How the human experiment is going to continue, right? Like we can't we can't rely on just practical nuts and bolts. We have to think, outside the box, or whatever you want to fucking say, right? And like that's what we do. That's what artists do. We
i
all of
went
us as artists.
I went to Kelowna, to for a couple of reasons, but one was to visit their art gallery. There was a exhibition, a retrospective of the work of an Ojibwe artist, Daphne Ojig. She started doing her work and started becoming famous around the same time that Norval Morrisseau became famous for the Woodland School of Art. which is something that I now sort of practice as hard as I can. And the reason why that's important is because, it was the first time in my life I ever walked into a gallery and saw these paintings by someone who could have been my grandmother, right? She wasn't, but she's an Anishinaabe. Um, she did this stuff, and because I never knew my grandmother or my mom or dad or anything like that, there's a huge disconnect in my understanding of history,
Mm,
of where I came from and where the people came from. And so seeing her work was so fundamentally important for me because she made it possible for me to feel connection to that that piece of identity that I've been missing all of my life. And so there's no way that, assembling a fucking chair from IKEA could provide me with that kind of meaning. It
mm,
requires someone who's sort of operating from an artistic standpoint to be able to effectively tell me what I need to know about the world and how it is and who's in it and why we are the people that we are.
mm,
So, when I'm reminded of the importance of art in society, I feel like those articles are being published by people who are so disconnected from their own culture, so assimilated to this fucking parasitic capitalist sort of um, world. They too don't understand the importance that art has played in creating that world that they live in as well.
right,
It's
right.
sad. It's really sad that someone could reject so wholesale in such a way, their own sort of identity.
Yeah, yeah. The history, yeah, is it's this combination. I mean, I'm where you're from so informs where you're going, and yeah, and that's why I get so angry at these. Uh, and I still get angry. I'm sorry, I'm not perfectly zen yet, but I get angry at this acceptance of things as the way they are is the way they are. It's just there's nothing you can't not do that. Like when I think about economics, I think about the way we look at economics in the world, and it just has to be this way. And that couldn't be further from the truth. That's just not true. But we just say, yep, business as usual has to happen, has to be
Yeah,
like that. And it's like, no, it doesn't. Like, let's think creatively about what works and what doesn't. Like, let's move forward like that. Yeah. And I think the artists do that, believe it or not, even in the world of economics. Like, it's the creative thinking that makes you say, okay, maybe if we take this part, it's like the unicorn. The unicorn is like a horse with a horn on its head. Horses are there, horns on the head are there. Somebody creatively had to say, hey, what if a horse had a horn on its head? Right?
yes, absolutely. Um, Luckily, um, I think the idea of being able to reflect on things or whatever is a valuable part of the lesson. Like what we're doing today will have a bearing on tomorrow. You
Mm,
know, I think that the work being created during this time of stress and discomfort and uncertainty and um, all this sort of feelings that we're going through during pandemic times is valuable in sort of telling the story. Um,
mm,
so I don't know. I feel like in some cases the art market is really sort of tanked over the last few months. But at the same time, I sort of feel like there's got to be a time where, what we are doing is going to be embraced in a way that, well, pays the bills,
yeah,
hopefully.
and that's the problem, right? I mean, it's this means ends distinction, right? Like the art is being created f- for itself, but you
Yes.
know, we see what happens when artists eat their paint, right? Like that's not the best idea. Like
Oh, yeah.
you should probably try to get something else in you. Um, so of course we have to do that. But I'm a romantic, and I still cling to the notion that maybe we can figure out ways to not do that, or to circumvent that, like that we can see the value of art without making it a, like, capital value,
Yeah,
or at least to say, okay, that's not the main point. That is,
yeah.
it's a subsidiary, or an offshoot point, but the main point is the intrinsic value of the art in its contribution to the community, and in what it does to get us to think forward and think differently, and to you know
This is
and to dream a little bit, and
I'm going to date this or give this a shelf life just by sort of saying that, like, an example of the economics of that to me is that the U.S. Senate just took a recess for the summer without passing any sort of package for Americans to receive some sort of relief from
right.
this insane disaster south of the border here. And so, I'm sort of reading now of talk about, a general strike. And like, I feel like I've been reading about general strikes all my life.
As a Winnipegger, right?
Yeah,
No.
but without an awful lot of, impact. It's sort of this sort of bygone kind of way of looking at work and workers and rights. But, it sort of feels like, how far do you have to be pushed and punched down upon before you really sort of feel like something like a general strike is the most viable option? Like, if the Senate is going on recess, then why aren't the workers going on recess? It's not as though anything's happening anyways. It's not as though there's very much left to lose if you're an American. And this sort of idea that, well, we'll just keep on shopping at Walmart and waiting for all this to blow over is it.
Yeah.
Uh, that's been
Max out
happening
max
for
out another
so.
credit card.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, it's not working. It's not going to turn itself around. You can't reform that way of treating people. There's fundamentally, it's bankrupt, and it couldn't be better exemplified than present day circumstances, um, and to an extent here in Canada and elsewhere as well. But certainly, the textbook on predatory capitalism is certainly on display in a way
Yeah.
it's really never been seen with such clarity. So what happens next is totally in the hands of people. At least that's what I hope they're able to kind of see.
Yeah, I hope they are too. I hope we all are, to see that it's like it's up to us individually to become groups, and to make our voices heard, and to demand that's enough is enough, right? And
Yeah, yeah,
and I really, and I hope beyond hope that, especially in that 4% of the world that is in such a rough condition, um, that they do that something happens. But it's such a weird one too, with the whole American. You're so much closer because you're right there. It's a one long bike ride and you're there. But for me, I'm a little more removed here in Europe. But it feels like, I mean, we see all this stuff and we think about all this stuff that's going on in that country, but ultimately, how much power do we as non-Americans have, except to encourage our American friends to kick some ass and take some names in this situation? But
that's probably why I take shit for sort of being as glued to American politics as I do. I think it was a different story back when I first got to know you, when I was sort of like consuming an awful lot of, Hunter S. Thompson. It was a lot more sport back then. But, I think the stakes have certainly changed. And even some of Hunter's sort of uh, ideas about what the future held were sort of laughable and ridiculous and hard to envision back in the 70s and 80s, and during that era when he was sort of doing an awful lot of writing about politics. All of that seems to have come to pass now. And it kind of stopped being funny. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it used to be America was kind of a punchline.
Yeah.
But there was the sense that maybe, things might be better, things might work out. If you just sort of see the other side of this two-party system and sort of believe in one side more than the other.
Mm-hmm.
But, clearly that was not true. I don't believe in the two-party system, and it's sort of, I just feel bad for my friends, and for
Yeah.
people who are forced to literally risk their lives if they want to leave the house, uh, over something that was totally preventable. um,
Mm-hmm.
it's a really harsh thing to be a part of. And I mean, we just closed the border until now, the end of September again. So that's really
Good.
important. That's, yeah. Um, Fuck the border except for this one. Uh,
What's
stay the.
the what's the joke? We need to you need to build a wall in America. We'll pay for it. Isn't that the
Yeah,
yeah
please,
yeah.
please do. I'll donate to that Kickstarter.
Yeah, these I mean it's just it really is so sad that it seems like I mean growing up I mean you and I both went through around we're around the same age and so 80s hardcore was probably a big thing for us to understand American politics the way we sort of the Jello Biafras of the world and like talking there and understanding that stuff and it seems like every time every new chapter is just you know one 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 step deeper into the quicksand. Like it's just like
And it was all
as
foretold.
history yeah and as history has been unfolding in this particular narrative, this story, we just keep on finding ourselves deeper and deeper in the shit, like, or they find themselves or whatever it is
And by
that
extension, us, but for
well
sure.
that yeah that that particular social experiment just keeps going on all in the in the name of American exceptionalism, right? Like and it's just it's so fucking tragic because it's like look in the future this is what's going to happen and we're all just like do 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 plunk into the hole, and
Yeah.
we're
And now,
already talking about it. We've been talking about it forever, as long as I've been like online about what's happening. It's been there, you know.
yeah, um, the DRI wasn't wrong, um, 80s hardcore wasn't wrong. Like, Jello Biafra, as annoying as he is, was not wrong. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
ah, shit. I mean, we were paying attention. We saw the potential for this to happen. This isn't news, which is maybe in some ways the hardest part of all this. Is
yeah,
that, again, it was preventable. It didn't
sure,
have to be this way. You know,
yeah.
People have been talking about how to prevent this kind of a thing, screaming at the top of their voice, in protests and being ridiculed and laughed at and told they're nuts and the whole bit.
Or just isn't that profound?
Right.
uh See you later, I got to get up to work in the morning, like we all stopped and went yes, and then just it's like I you know Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. How old is that movie?
It's got to be pushing 30.
Yeah, he was choked to death. Radio Raheem at the end of the movie was choked to death by the cops.
Yeah.
Or no, by not by the cops, but they watched it happen. So it's that is not Like it's already there. And like, I mean, but even the I can't breathe had already happened a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, why aren't we doing anything about these? God, they're not even obtuse. They're the clearest messages you could
Oh,
imagine.
yeah.
Crystal fucking clear. And we just do nothing about it. So,
In case you ever wanted to know how society would behave, if there was such thing as a Fourth Reich, um, if you could ever imagine if we were faced with that, what would, North American society do? Um, I think the verdict's in.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So congratulations, everyone,
yeah,
who sits by and fucking acts like it isn't here.
yeah.
Um,
Doesn't say anything about it.
it's that's really that's really dark.
Sorry. Yeah, I don't. Shit. I really didn't want to go here.
I kind of go there all the time, so it's pretty,
Yeah,
you know what I
I
mean?
do
Like I,
too. I do too. But at the same time, it's like I really want to try to be positive, and I want to encourage, uh, you know, the youth, young people, because they can't think, they can't feel the way we feel. That
yeah,
won't do it. That won't fucking accomplish anything. And
yeah.
they have to believe that they can do something and that they should do something.
Well,
And
here's what's different is the fact that this Black Lives Matter thing and this police brutality thing, since it became a global issue, ultimately, it hasn't gone away. Like it hasn't, you know, I feel like a lot of times, really awful things happen. It leaves the news cycle, by the end of the week and it's gone. But, actually this stuff is actually sort of shaping up as a really important issue for the next, US election. And I've seen people marching the streets across Europe in support of, you know, these folks here in Canada and the US who have been treated historically and, every day like garbage. It's not as though the world isn't watching, and it's not as though people going out in the streets and demanding change. Like people see that, people are aware of it. And I think there was a period maybe a month ago where I thought, okay, this is due to die out now. 15 minutes have passed, and it's time for police brutality to take the back seat as usual.
well, something else.
Um,
Yeah.
but it didn't. It hasn't. It's still. It can't be contained for whatever reason. It still has legs, and not that it shouldn't or that it's inexplicable. It's just it usually doesn't. It's usually not the case that Black Lives Matter at all, right? So the
Yeah.
fact that 3 months later they still do, oh wow, I kudos I
And
for
it's
3 months of giving a shit.
and it's morphing into some other things that I find very encouraging. For example, Mississippi has changed their flag because it had the battle flag on it, and they have finally passed that through, barely, like by one vote, but they got it through, and it's no longer their flag, and so it's the last remaining state flag. It's symbolic, but it's the last remaining state flag to remove to remove the battle flag. There's no longer any battle flag in any state flags, or symbolism, and that's that's it's a positive thing. It's not everything, but it's a positive thing. There's two or three different politicians have come up from the Black Lives Movement to win very unexpectedly in different races. This one woman, I can't remember her name, but she had like $8,000 worth of
Tory
campaign
Brooks,
fund. Yeah,
Tory Brooks, yeah,
something like that. And like, damn, that's awesome. That's awesome.
yeah. She
That,
unseated like a Democrat that had held that seat for like 10 years.
yeah.
Just totally
There's
got.
more than one story. There's at least two or three since Black Lives Matter there's been these activists that have ran and defeated the incumbent, and that's excellent. Like these are the things that give me hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I think that the Democrats really ate a lot of shit the last election because they tried to, play fair. They tried to take the high road. And clearly, for better for worse, society down there isn't really working the high road
Yeah.
based on, respect and decorum and that kind of thing. So, seeing, real justice Democrats kind of really rising to uh, a place and time where, people really feel like, okay, we've tried, the Hillary Clinton way, we've tried the establishment, democratic system, and somehow that didn't work. We can't sort of repeat that. So let's see what happens if we get people who are very explicit about how they feel about the need for justice and
Mm-hmm.
equal rights and all of that really good stuff that's really lacking from the democratic discourse, even, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
And there's still a hell of a long way to go. I mean, I don't think, I think there's still a lot of uh, old guard bullshit it's going to take them a long time to clean up. And I hope they get it done in time. But it's good to see that there is some movement and people are going, no, 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 this is not what we believe in. Um, uh, what sucks and I don't want to, I'm going to try not to get too negative, but what sucks is you've got this two-party system.
yeah,
And so you can't say, um, if you're going to continue your Joe Biden ways, then we'll just vote for number 3,
yeah.
right? Then
Whoever,
you just vote for nobody, and that doesn't help at all, right? So
yeah, like I I don't know, it would be great if people knew more names like Jill Stein and that kind of thing, and were to take a look at, the Green Party as a kind of a global kind of alternative to the two-party system and
sure,
to the maintenance of capitalism. Um, uh, it's really tough, you sort of you always feel like you're kind of on your heels, kind of ready to fall over if you don't vote for dried up old fucking white guy like Joe Biden, you
yeah,
know.
who's basically just there to pull the levers for industry for global capital, right? I mean, that's the
Yeah,
problem.
I
He's
don't,
corporatist.
I think he's kind of on the same page as like, Brian Mulrooney or someone like that,
Yeah,
politically. Like, I
yeah,
think he's,
sure.
or maybe, I don't even know if he could be considered, the Liberal Party sort of as far left as
No, no,
center,
no, no,
right?
no, 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 not down there. And yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of interesting stories about. I mean, he's a career politician. He's been at it
Yes,
forever, and so with that much history comes lots of different episodes where he uh, was very instrumental in some very unsavory activities. However, however, doesn't hold doesn't hold a candle to the bed shitting of Donald Trump and
right.
the Republican agenda. So here we are. So here we are. And so I guess I mean whatever. Who even is fucking watching this at this point? We're what 2 hours in. So like are we? Do we have a message for the
Hi,
people?
Mom.
Like right?
Oh no,
Mom's even
she's,
gone.
yeah, she tuned out.
Of
Sorry,
course she
it is
did.
just us now.
but but yeah, like I mean, I would really want to encourage people to fucking try to stay positive and value creativity and value creative thinking and all that good stuff that we hit on earlier is more valid now than ever. You know,
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely. That's going to make the difference. I mean, being able to sort of reflect some of that stuff in our own personal lives with the people we know and we love, I think is, the starting point. I'm only where I'm at because of the support of other people,
Yeah.
other people who've shown me compassion and understanding and appreciation. I don't do these things, these amazing things or whatever, like on my own. It's only because other people believe in me that these things have been possible in my life. And if that's true, and I believe it is, then it's my job to sort of pass that and sort of share that sort of compassion and greatness with other people whenever
Mm,
possible, and to sort of see that kind of be the standard of how to treat people, um, is 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 what we can do. Like that much we can do, and that's for me. It took some training to learn how to talk better and to be more able to listen to other perspectives and that kind of thing. But
mhm.
it's not unreasonable to strive for in life to become better at who you are. Absolutely, it can
I
happen
think
to anyone.
it's much more unreasonable not to strive for that.
Yes,
Um, I
absolutely.
mean, what do we do? Why am I breathing? Why am I taking all these valuable resources if I'm not putting in some effort to contribute in some sort of a positive way to this crazy story? You can't. Cynicism doesn't doesn't grease the wheels at all. It doesn't.
Nope.
You know. So you have to try to to use the conflict resolution language. It's all about reframing. You have to reframe and reframe and reframe again and reframe again. And it's a struggle, and it becomes more and more of a struggle the more you're faced with the darkness and the fucking bullshit and the idiocy and the horrible continued decisions that we make that drop us into these depressive states. But you have to, if you're going to keep breathing, you got to keep trying, keep
Yeah,
on, like
it's
try to do something. Try.
everyone's efforts are are gonna be good enough. They
Yeah.
have to be. They have to
Yeah.
be. It has to be worth the while.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the conclusion.
That's the conclusion. And in conclusion, Mike, hell, that was, this has been a really great talk. I was really excited when you said you wanted to do this, uh, and it met all my expectations, which is
Oh,
super awesome. And you know what? I'm just starting to do these, and after I finish them, I have such a high from just having these
yeah.
like great conversations with people. And yeah, so I want to thank you again. Thank you for being so open and sharing and just being a fucking kick-ass dude, Mike Alexander. Mike
Oh,
A
dude.
all the way. Fucking
Every
love it.
time we chat, I walk away, all the better for it.
Oh, right
You
on.
kind of, you really go back in my history to a time where it's important for people who saw me then to sort of see me now. I think that
Mm, mm.
there's a lot of stuff that I've had to work through that, I'm happy to sort of report. It's going good. It's going well, and I'm happy to be here. And I'm glad that there's people that want to be with me as well.
Yeah,
So
right. That
any capacity in which we can sort of connect, half a world away, um,
sure.
that's gonna that's gonna brighten my day. It's gonna brighten my week. That's gonna encourage
Yeah,
me to keep moving forward in a good way.
right.
So
Great. And then
thank
yeah,
you.
yeah, absolutely my pleasure. This is an 100% ringing endorsement for sure. I'm gonna put some shit down in the when I broadcast this thing or whatever when I put it on YouTube. So after we're done here, you can send me some links if you have any links you want people to check out and stuff, and then that'll be
Can
included in the conversation.
can do.
Right on. Okay, I'm gonna hit pause and then we'll have a private moment together.
All right.
All right.